Okay, it is past 7 and we do have a quorum, so I am going to call the meeting to order. Let's just go over a few of the ground rules first before we get started. The first thing is, if we do need them, we do have clickers. So, does everyone know how to use the clickers? Do we have a... Perfect. Okay, so we're just going to give you a quick rundown on how we work the clickers. So the question will be asked. A yes vote, you push 1. A no vote, you push 2. So our first question of the night, just to test you guys all out. Tonight is a good night for a town meeting. Yes or no? 1 is a yes, 2 is a no. And then you can see down here on the bottom of the screen, there's a little countdown clock that tells you how long you have. The last time you push the button is the vote that's going to get counted. Oh, sorry for you 19. The rest of us are going to have fun. Okay, so if necessary, we do have when you would like to speak. Okay, all we ask is that once the motion is made and has been seconded and discussion part starts, if you want to speak, just come up and line up in front of one of the 2 microphones. At which time I will start recognizing people. Once you are recognized, then we just want you to tell us your name and your address so that we know that you're from Lenox, and then you can make your comments. Don't speak until you are recognized by the moderator, me. And that'll be the start of it. That's about all. So before we get the meeting started, the chairman of the board Ed Lane would like to get up and say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
No.
You can't?
Kiss the mic.
Work with me here, John. How's that? A little better? Perfect. Okay, it's a pleasure to be here tonight for our annual town meeting, an important tradition, and it brings our residents together, our residents together, to voice your opinions and vote on the important budget items and direction of the town. Of course, much of the hard work that goes into this meeting by our hardworking staff and many volunteers that get us to this point, some of whom I'd like to acknowledge now. On our select board, I have David Roach, Mac Scherf, Mary Beth Mitz, and Neil Maximilian. Also on back of me to my left, is Carrie Sullivan, our town clerk, and she's the one that's really responsible for putting all this together. Thanks, Carrie. And to her right is our new administrative director, Deanna Garner. Deanna comes to us after the retirement last summer of our longtime administrative assistant, Mary Ellen Deming, as she chose to enjoy a well-deserved retirement. Deanna has proven to be very organized, smart, a quick learner, and a pleasure to work with. Welcome, Deanna. But so much of the effort it takes to run a town is done by our volunteer board and committee members. So right now I'd like to have every one of our board and committee members and anyone who volunteers to give their time volunteering to help make Lenox a better place to stand to be recognized. Come on, don't be shy. Stand up for all the things you do. Thank you. The past year has been both challenging and rewarding at the same time. Challenging in terms of rising costs, inflation, contractual commitments, which is reflected in our budget, all while continuing to provide needed services, maintain our buildings, roads, and our capital improvements. Now I just want to talk for a second about the rest of the river. As we begin the actual implementation of the river cleanup, our focus will be on the health and safety of our residents. The town of Lenox is committed to provide oversight through our consultants and any other source we may need to keep an eye on things and to act as a go-between with GE and the EPA as the work progresses. This is ongoing, and we greatly welcome and appreciate your concerns and comments. Another aspect of the cleanup is to address how the residents of Lennoxdale and affected streets and neighborhoods should be compensated for the disruption and actually come out of this maybe in a better place. We will have community meetings, citizen input, and professional planners to make this happen. Thank you. It was a good year in many respects. Last year at town meeting, you approved a $70 million expenditure for construction of a public safety building and a major rebuild and upgrade of the wastewater treatment facility to meet federal standards. 2 days ago, we had our groundbreaking ceremony for our public safety building. This facility is a symbol of your commitment to provide our police, fire, and ambulance the tools and proper working environment needed as they perform their duties. You should be very proud of this when it's completed in about a year. The wastewater treatment plant upgrades, a much larger, more detailed, and technical build, is still in the engineering phase, but coming along as planned and on schedule. Technical projects such as these two require many, many hours of hard work by an all-volunteer permanent building committee, whom I would ask to stand if they're here tonight, and recognize their work, headed by Chairman Neil Maximilian, Andrew Lane, Tom Delasco, Jeff Vincent, and myself. A very skilled group, but their work isn't done. There's a lot more to do. Thank you, guys. And our work doesn't stop there. Tonight on Article 8, you will be asked for a sum of money to begin a feasibility study for a classroom addition at LMMHS, predominantly for science classrooms. It's been great working with the schools on a project that addresses their needs, no more, no less, that will fit in our long-term financial plans. Speaking of schools, Lennox is very proud of our Morris School principal, Brenda Kelly, as she was awarded the Principal of the Year Award by the Massachusetts School Administrators Association. Congratulations, Brenda. So now it's time to introduce our town manager, Mr. Christopher Ketchen. As everyone is, I'm sure, aware, Chris has decided to take on a new and exciting challenge in a job at the state level, a big job. I promised Chris that I wouldn't ramble on praising him for all that he has done for the town of Lenox, although I could really do that for a long time. So I'm just not going to do that. The Select Board will soon be hiring an interim town manager as we enter the process of filling this position. Best of luck to Chris, and congratulations.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, Christopher Ketchen, 388 Housatonic Street, and for the next 2 months, the town manager. All right. So welcome, everyone, to the 2024 annual town meeting, where you, in a unique role as legislators, unlike anywhere else in the country, will determine the appropriations. In this particular warrant, it's only appropriations for the funding of the FY25 fiscal year budget for the various town departments. So thank you for taking the time to come out, and just really appreciate your support for the community, and look forward to serving you in the year ahead. So we'll go right into a budget overview to be respectful of the time of the 19 of you who are not as excited to be here as I am. Okay. So we're looking at all in a $35.4 million budget for fiscal year 2025. This will be made up primarily of the appropriations that, if you're so inclined, you'll approve here tonight, as well as some non-appropriated items that we're required to raise by state law. The levy is forecast to increase by 6.75%, with a conservative estimate of 5.6% on tax bill impact. That is based on a new growth figure of approximately $200,000, which we've exceeded almost every year that I've been here. So I think that's a conservative number. So I say that as an estimate for some of the context of the slides that you'll see coming up here. This budget fully funds the budget request of the Lenox Public Schools, and there are significant capital and infrastructure reinvestments that are included in this budget as articulated in some of the later capital articles. So moving ahead in the fiscal year, as Chairman Lane mentioned, the budget assumes a lot of inflationary pressures, particularly around health insurance and utilities. We are also committed to funding needs for operational investments, such as additional resources in both the police and facilities operations, as well as a compensation study to make sure that we have a competitive wage structure, both in terms of external and internal equity. So we'll go straight to the pie charts that you've seen 1,000 times. They don't tend to move much, but as in prior years, when we're talking about budgets, we're talking about at least where the money comes from. That's always primarily the taxation of real and personal property. But there are other important revenue sources, such as the enterprise funds, which fully support both the water and wastewater operation of the town. Local revenue, made up of some high-profile sources, such as the lodging tax, the meals tax, motor vehicle excise tax, make up about 14% of our total revenues. State aid, which is something I'm learning more and more about all the time, makes up roughly 11% of the operating budget in Lenox. We're much less reliant on state aid when compared to other communities. We're deploying about $2.6 million in free cash as part of this warrant. When you accumulate all the impacts of the articles that are contained there within it. And there's $1.4 million of deployed community preservation funds that you'll take up when Chair Delasco speaks on that article later. So where does the money go? In Lenox, the largest expenditures that take place, obviously, to fund our outstanding public school system. 47.6% of total appropriations are dedicated towards our public schools. Some of the larger other categories include public safety at 8.6%, general government at 10.7%. Our enterprise fund activity is about 10.4% of total spending, and then the remainder is distributed among various other categories, as you can see behind me. So we get to the tax impact. The total valuation of the town in the current fiscal year that we're in, that's FY24, is $1.8 billion. That's billion with a B. Property tax levy for FY25, if all the appropriations articles are approved here tonight, is estimated to be $19 million. That would result in, according to our projections, in a 5.6% increase on the tax rate. So that would take our current tax rate at $9.07 up to $9.58. And we have a split tax rate in Lenox. We tax commercial, industrial, and personal property at a different rate than where we tax residential property. That would increase to approximately $13.57. The median residential tax bill would be impacted as follows. For a home assessed at the median, which is $481,600, that would result in a tax bill of $4,614 or $246 annually, $61.50 per quarterly bill. And Lenox bills quarterly, unlike other communities that build semi-annually. We go to the reserve positions. This is going to be difficult to see, but I think this is one of the more important aspects of how things are done differently in Lenox than perhaps they are in other communities. Starting with our free cash balance, we estimate our local revenues in particular in a very conservative manner that tends to generate surplus revenue at the close of any particular fiscal year. We certified $4.6 million in free cash at the close of last fiscal year as a result of those conservative revenue estimates. And we deploy much of that to fund capital reinvestment. We carry a general fund stabilization fund of just over $700,000. We also have a debt service stabilization fund of $1.7 million, which we just recently established to counteract any negative impacts of assumptions that don't pan out on these two very large building projects, soon to be three building projects for wastewater treatment plant, public safety building, and this building, LMMHS. So to the extent that we're wrong on any of our projections, the stabilization fund is designed to take the edge off of any future tax impacts that may result from any negative outcomes that we can't currently foresee. And we intend to build that stabilization fund to match an appropriate order of magnitude to the almost $70 million that we are currently authorized, and some higher number moving forward for the high school project. We also save so that we can make public safety equipment purchases with cash as opposed to borrowing. We have nearly $1 million saved in our fire engine stabilization account, as well as the ambulance replacement fund. At $100,000, we just put in a purchase for a new ambulance, so we'll begin restoring that fund to a balance to get ready for the next ambulance that'll be coming down the road. Other post-employment benefits. This truly is unique to Lenox. We have we have just over $8 million in our OPEB trust. This goes to fund the health insurance, primarily health insurance for retired teachers, firefighters, police officers, one-day town managers. The OPEB trust is something that a lot of communities don't do. And I believe that in the long run, we will see the benefits of having this pool of funds to go to again smooth out the difficult edges of future escalation in retiree medical prices that other communities will have to absorb without the availability of these resources. We want to try to realize as much of the costs of the services that our public employees render at the time that they render that service, as opposed to waiting and paying them long after they've ended their service to the town. So that's the intent here, and I think we've done a fine job. The two enterprise funds, we have water enterprise, about $1.4 million in retained earnings, wastewater enterprise, just under $500,000 in retained earnings, and then excess levy capacity. I'm often criticized for putting this on here because it's in folks' mind, and you're not incorrect for feeling this way, but the only way to tap into this reserve is through taxation. But under Proposition 2.5, we're limited in the amount that we're able to tax without a voter-approved override. But nevertheless, between the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the School Committee, we've underspent our levy limit by almost $24 million over the last 10 years. That is a policy decision that these boards have made, that you've approved, that has kept $23.7 million in your pocket as opposed to coming into the town treasury. So I think that is a testimony to your fiscal responsibility as legislators, and also a very fine thing for our boards and committees, particularly the Select Board, Finance Committee, and School Committee to be proud of. So, and when I started this job 10 years ago, this figure was $172,000. The town accountant, who is retiring, Charlie Brown, brought this figure to me this morning, and as you'll see, we're now at over $4 million in untaxed levy capacity. So that's remarkable and not typical. Speaking of accountant, Charlie Brown, our long-serving town accountant, is leaving us at the at the end of this fiscal year to enjoy hopefully long and healthy retirement. And we've recruited and now have on board Anna Osborne, who is the finance director from Williamstown. She's here tonight. And I have to say, in town manager world, I feel very, very good to have worked with Charlie Brown all these years and to be able to leave Lenox with a outstanding town accountant in place to carry forward what is a very, very fine financial posture for the town to be in. So we're in good shape. So let's hit the warrant very briefly. Article 2 is where we'll discuss the budget lines for the various municipal departments. These departmental appropriations were recommended unanimously by both the Select Board and the Finance Committee. Article 3 is the School Committee request to fund the Lenox Public Schools. This was unanimously supported by the School Committee, the Finance Committee, and the Select Board. Articles 4 and 5 deal with the enterprise funds, which I talked about earlier, and then there were CPA, capital, and other financial articles. So it's almost exclusively a financial warrant before you this evening. So with that, I want to say the most understated thank you to the town of Lenox that any person could possibly give. It's been an honor. There's no shortage of emotion with this being my last annual town meeting, but the good news is I look forward to sitting in your seat at my next town meeting. I really appreciate it. It has really been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay, Article 1, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to waive the reading of the warrant and return of service thereof, and to authorize the moderator, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 15, to declare a two-thirds vote on voice votes if he deems it so.
This is just housekeeping. We do this every year. This is just to say that I can call the two-thirds votes, which we don't have any of today, on the warrant, and just call the votes by voice vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 2.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, I'm Dave Roach, Selectman. So, Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds in the Treasury money for operating expenses for the town's fiscal year of 2025 as follows, or any other sum, and further to provide for said appropriation, transfer the sum of $545,145 from free cash, so called as certified on July 1st, 2023. Now, before I read all of these, maybe 30, 35 items, if you have a question or an issue with any one of them, just yell out "hold" and we'll put a hold on it and discuss it after I finish. Okay. Item number 1, Administrative and Finance, $359,854. Town Clerk, $93,262. Town Treasurer, Collector, $157,407. Compensation Reserve, $110,000. Operations Support, $109,500. Election and Registration, $18,195. Economic Development and Advertising, $134,060. Town Debt and Interest, $246,125. Audit Reserve Account, $913,104. Insurance and Bonds and OPEB, $880,186. Land Use Department, $533,134. Town building, $231,067. General government subtotal, $3,785,894. Police department, $1,614,632. Fire department, $780,371. Emergency management, $38,185. Ambulance squad, $614,518. Public safety subtotal is $3,047,706. Line 17, vocational education, $202,107. Education subtotal, $202,107. Highway department, $781,566. Snow and ice, $257,005. Cemetery, $33,924. Public works subtotal, $1,072,495. Board of Health, $276,287. Veteran Services, $30,372. Human Services subtotal, $306,659. Lenox Library, $505,686. Lenox Community Center, $517,226. Cultural Council grants, $10,000. Cultural District, $15,000. Academy Building, $8,063. Historical Commission, $25,950. And celebrations, $2,255. Cultural and recreation subtotal, $1,084,380. The total of everything is $9,499,241.
Is there a second? Explanation?
Yes. As the town manager stated in his presentation at the beginning of the meeting, the operating budget for the town, including all municipal appropriations, was developed with a series of guiding principles, including limiting the tax impact, maintaining responsible reserve levels, while maintaining and enhancing core services. The operating budget presented under this article accomplishes all of these objectives.
Okay. All in favor of the article as moved, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Unanimous. Article 3.
Mary Beth Mitz, 20 Dunmore Court. I'm going to take a quick moment for my annual public service announcement. On page 15, there is the Town of Lenox committee application in your annual report. I want to thank Ed Lane for thanking all of our volunteers on our many boards and committees. We always need a few more. If you have time in your busy lives, we can always use a new friendly face on many of these boards and commissions. So take a look at what's listed here, and if you feel like you have 5 hours a month you can contribute, we'd really like you to fill this out and get it into Deanna Garner, our executive assistant in the select board meeting room. Thank you. Article 3, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds in the Treasury the amount of $16,855,665 for the operating expenses of the Lenox Public Schools for fiscal year 2025, and further, to provide for said appropriation, transfer the sum of $300,000 from free cash, so-called, as certified on July 1st, 2023.
Is there a second? Explanation?
This article provides for the general fund portion of the budget for the Lenox Public Schools. The school committee, the select board, and the finance committee unanimously recommend favorable passage of this request. And at this time, I'd like to invite Veronica Fenton, the chairwoman of the Lenox School Committee, for a few remarks.
Good evening, everybody. I want to share very quickly in the comments, when Chris came to Lenox, I guess 10 years ago, really he did usher in an era of real wonderful cooperation, of recognition that his own children have been educated in our schools, a recognition that our schools are an integral part of our town, and they're very important to all of the members of this community, and at the same time represent a pretty significant portion of the budget and your taxpayer dollars. So Chris has been an amazing partner at difficult times, being creative, trying to think collaboratively about how we make sure that our schools are funded, that our staff are paid, that our retirements are planned for, and we too are the beneficiaries of the beautiful, the wonderful, robust numbers that you see and of Chris's guidance. And we look forward to continuing to have him as a partner in his role as a parent and a community member. And he always is ready to roll up his sleeves and help us to think creatively about getting some things done. So I'm extremely grateful. As we embarked since last year's school committee, we had some leadership challenges, and I'm just very pleased to say that this has just been just about the one-year anniversary of the stewardship of Dr. William Collins, who's here, who's our superintendent. And just about a one-year anniversary of our full-time principal, Dr. Jeremiah Ames. And we are grateful also for the financial guidance and stewardship of Melissa Falkowski, who's our assistant superintendent and director of finance. Our director of student services, Brian Kelly, and the already, very famous principal of Morris School, who we are just really, really grateful. Her recognition as Mass Elementary School Principal of the Year is well deserved, and she's beloved in our community. And because of how hard she works and how much she's willing to step back and let the people on her team receive recognition for what the great things that happen in her school and her celebration of students every day. I know that it's the joy of her life is to see the students succeed, and we are very grateful. I will keep it short for those 19 people. Okay. We also, as a pretty large employer in town, are extremely grateful for our staff, our administrative leaders, our team, from professional staff to our maintenance to our special education and our faculty. And every year we do have a few that decide that they're going to retire and move on to the next phase of their life. So I'm going to give some recognition. Some are here and they can enjoy our accolades, and others will receive our appreciation as they decide to move on. We're very, very grateful for Ms. Liz Bear, who retired from our Latin instruction to be in her role of doting grandma, and I've already seen the pictures. So we're very grateful for her. We're also grateful, I think timing-wise last year, we didn't quite acknowledge our wonderful Karen Zinchuk and Elaine Lovato, who had been stewarding our front office at LMMHS, and they retired over the summer, so I'm not sure if they had been recognized. Our science teacher, Lori Weatherby, will be retiring this year. Has actually completed that retirement. Some of the people retired in the early part of the school year. Jonathan Cade, who had done a wonderful job stewarding our music program, had retired. And Ms. Peretti in our elementary school retired in December. And Ruth Bloom, Francine Shellhammer will be finishing out the school year with us. It's been a wonderful contributor to our elementary school, as well as Ms. Becky Miller. And we thank them so much for many years of dedication. Okay, so this year, as we said, we've stabilized leadership. I think that we've actually engaged in a lot of really robust conversations to be able to look at what real changes that we need to make to create the kind of culture and community that is so important for our students. We, in the leadership of Dr. Collins, engaged in a conversation about how to make our spaces safe and brave. We want to have community education where all feel welcomed and seen and valued, and that we can also engage in difficult conversations, sometimes that result in some debate or some differences in understanding how people see the world if they don't come from our background, or if they just come from a different place in life. How can we engage in good, robust conversation? I'm very proud that on our school committee, we have engaged in those conversations, and sometimes in ways that have been hard and have been really challenging. And so I'm very grateful that we've done that from all of our faculty and staff, and administrative team, as well as in our leadership and with parents and students. And we often have speakers and presenters that can help us talk about some of the challenges of the day and how we can continue to have a community that is civil, and where we regard each other, we treat each other with respect, and we model that for our students as they go into the world and have to really tackle some difficult problems that we're seeing more and more every day, including also seeing how we best use technology in our schools and with our students. And these are conversations that are happening pretty consistently. So I'm very grateful. Our theme of safe and brave space, I think, has been very important, and we continue to have conversations about how we can ensure that students don't, that students and any people don't aren't harmed by hateful and harmful statements and rhetoric. And in schools, we know that students sometimes, don't always treat each other the best, and sometimes the adults don't either. So we're working toward that, and I think we're making a lot of progress. And I'm really, really proud of the work that's happening in our schools. Now, to the numbers. Some people might see this as a little bit higher. I will say that in addition to all of the culture work that we've been doing, have been really rolling up our sleeves and digging into understanding how we meet the needs of all of our students, including helping us to understand data, understand our curriculum, make sure our curriculum is up to date, and really giving students the kind of robust education that we are so proud of here in Lenox. So there are some changes in some staffing. We had a lot of conversations about that in our various school committee meetings and with our finance committee and with our select board. So I'm not going to bore you all with the details, but certainly would welcome any questions. We also did have some challenges. We are committed to and also legally bound to educate all students with whatever needs they bring to us. We do the best we can possibly to meet the needs of all of our students in our schools with diversified education, creative teaching, and support for our students. Sometimes, however, we do have to provide education for our students that is very costly and not conducted in our district. We respect the privacy of families and students who need these special accommodations and provisions, and so we put that into the budget and respect their privacy as much as possible. So when you see some numbers, that's going to be some of what you're going to see. I'm very proud that our Student Services Director and our administrative team, Brian Kelly, work really hard to see if there's ways that we can meet the needs of all of our students. I think that's it. I think that's the summary, but I am absolutely willing to answer questions. For those of you that might be new to town meeting, I will say if next year you have questions and you want to dig in deeper, we have multiple meetings where we break this down literally right down to the dollar, and you have the opportunity to attend those meetings or at any time to reach out to one of us and say, hey, can I talk about the school budget? I want to have a cup of coffee. We're open for that, and we welcome it. And then here, our job is to kind of get down to the numbers and give you a summary. But if you have questions, we're here and ready to answer questions for you.
Okay. We are voting on Article 3. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It is unanimous. Article 4.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Ed Lane. Article 4, I move that the town vote to make the following appropriations to fund the fiscal year 2025 budget for the sewer department. Sewer operations, $1,088,805. Debt service, $768,687. Capital expenditures, $220,000, for a total of $2,077,492. And further, to provide for said appropriations for the following sources of revenue and available funds: user charges, $1,857,492. Retained earnings, $220,000, for a total $2,077,492.
One second. Explanation.
Yeah, very simple explanation. Sewer department runs on an enterprise fund where system users charge and the departments, that's what pays the bills. I didn't read that right. Let me do that again. The sewer department runs on an enterprise fund system where user charges and other departmental revenues are used to fund the department operations.
Okay, we're voting on Article 4. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? It's unanimous. Article 5.
Article 5, I move that the town vote to make the following appropriations to fund the fiscal year 2025 budget for the water department. Water operations, $780,005. Debt service, $746,902. Capital expenditures, $62,000, for a total of $1,588,907. And further, to provide for said appropriations from the following sources of revenue and available funds. User charges, $1,526,907. Retained earnings, $62,000, for a total of $1,588,907.
Explanation.
Like the sewer department, the water department runs on an enterprise fund system where user charges and other departmental revenue are used to fund the department operations.
Okay, we are voting on Article 5. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Article 6.
Max Scherf, Pine Knoll. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept funds being provided by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in fiscal year 2025 under the provisions of Chapter 90 of the General Laws to pay for such costs as allowed by appropriate legislation in connection with the maintenance, repair, and construction of town ways and bridges.
Explanation.
Per state law, each year we seek voter approval to accept state funding for road work. We expect to receive approximately $275,000 in Chapter 90 funds this year, which will support repaving.
Okay, we're voting on Article 6. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Unanimous.
Good evening, Neil Maximilian, Cliffwood Street. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate or otherwise provide the sum of $1,308,000 for the following departmental capital expenditures. Public Works Department, $349,000. Technology expenditures, $100,000. School Department expenditures, $400,000. Fire Department expenditures, $25,000. Police Department expenditures, $40,000. Land use, $120,000, and community center expenditures, $274,000. And further, to provide for said appropriations to transfer from free cash as certified on July 1st, 2023, the sum of $1,308,000.
Explanation.
The previous articles generally dealt with operating expenses and/or enterprise funds. These are capital expenditures made from cash, which don't require borrowing. They include things like replacement tasers for the fire department, new pickup trucks for the DPW, some trail work on some of the conservation land we have, things like that.
Okay, we are voting on Article 7. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? It is unanimous. Article 8.
Mary Beth Mitz, Dunmore Court. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate or otherwise provide the sum of $200,000 to conduct a feasibility study for improvements at Lenox Memorial Middle and High School, and further, to provide for said appropriation to transfer from free cash as certified on July 1st, 2023, the sum of $200,000.
Explanation.
The school committee, a subcommittee of the school committee that is looking at capital projects and the permanent building committee have come to an agreement that doing a feasibility study for the potential construction of new science classrooms is going to be the subject of this feasibility study.
Christopher Fenton, Taconic Avenue. Just one quick question. I know several years ago we voted an appropriation for the sawmill project, and that's now the new public safety building. Is it possible to use those funds for this purpose?
Well, we've got free cash, and the town of Lenox probably repaid that into free cash, and so hopefully that's what we're using.
Hold on.
The money that we appropriated for the sawmill property, when it did not become a public affordable housing project, went back to CPC coffers to be used for CPC purposes, so it wouldn't be able to be used for that.
Okay. We are voting on Article 8. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Article 9.
Tom Delasco, Hillside Drive, Community Preservation Committee Chair. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate or reserve from the Community Preservation Fund annual reserves in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in fiscal year 2025, exactly as appearing in the warrant for this annual town meeting, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation.
All right. There's a second explanation.
The Community Preservation Committee received 7 applications for projects covering all 3 categories of the CPA. The committee met over several meetings in the late fall and early winter to hear from the project applicants, consider the merits of the proposed projects, and vote whether or not to recommend them to town meeting. Following is a brief overview of the projects. Under the Historic Preservation category, Ventford Hall masonry work. Ventford Hall has worked hard over the years to stabilize and restore the historic mansion. Their application to the CPC asks for a portion of the money that will be required to repair masonry work on the chimneys around the building. The total cost of this project will be close to $500,000. They are asking the Lenox CPC to contribute $156,685. The balance will be provided through a grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Council, donations from private foundations, and Ventford Hall's own restoration funds. The second is Home Farm at Undermountain. Home Farm at Undermountain used to be known as Undermountain Farm and has recently undergone major positive changes in the organization and are looking forward to the future of the farm and improvements to the buildings and property. Their application to the CPC asks for a portion of the money that will be required to stabilize and restore the historic barn on the property. The total cost of this first phase of work will be $379,500. They are asking the Lenox CPC to contribute $189,750. The balance will be provided through private donors and foundations. The third project is Church on the Hill, the clock and the steeple tower. Church on the Hill has applied to the CPC to fund a portion of the cost to make structural repairs and restoration to the clock tower and steeple. The total project cost will be close to $200,000. They are asking the Lenox CPC to contribute $76,000. The balance will be provided through the church's endowment and capital fundraising campaign. Under the community housing category, Lenox Affordable Housing Trust, The Affordable Housing Trust administers a first-time homebuyer grant program. They currently carry a balance of $282,686 to fund this and other affordable housing programs in the town. They are seeking an additional $37,000 from the Lenox CPC to be specifically used toward the first-time homebuyer grant program. Penrose, Brushwood project, and the 283 Pittsfield Road housing projects. As we know, Penrose will be constructing an affordable housing project near the Marriott Hotel and the old Brushwood Farm. Last year, the town approved a CPC grant of $500,000, which allowed Penrose to leverage additional funding commitments from other governmental agencies and sources. This year, they are asking for an additional $500,000 toward the final funding package to commence construction. Penrose also applied for a second CPC grant of $500,000 toward another affordable housing project that they want to construct at 283 Pittsfield Road. This site is across from Line Kiln Road. The CPC felt that it would be better to wait until the current project at Brushwood is well underway before committing funds toward another project. The second application was not approved. Under the open space category, the Mount Accessible Trails. The Mount has been the recipient of CPC funds for many different projects over the years and has put those funds to good use, making the facilities and grounds more attractive to visitors from near and far. Their application to the CPC asks for a portion of the money that will be required to enhance accessibility to its outdoor recreation spaces, including the historic gardens and walking trails across 170 acres that are under conservation restriction. The Mount's property has been open as a public park since 2020, enabling citizens of Lenox to enjoy these spaces year-round for free. The total cost of this project will be $243,168. They are asking the Lenox CPC to contribute $77,000. The balance will be provided through the Housatonic Heritage Fund and private donors.
Robert Vaughn, 10 Post Road. I'd like to make an amendment to reduce the amount recommended for the home farm at Undermountain Farm from $189,750 to $85,000.
Okay, there's a motion for an amendment. Is there a second? Yeah, it's all right. We're going to do an explanation and talk about it first, so let's go ahead. Can you say that a little louder, Bob?
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to amend the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee for the home farm at Undermountain from $189,750, I think it was, to $85,000.
All right, there's a motion for an amendment and a second. Explanation, Bob, as to why?
I reviewed all the projects from 2012 till now that have been approved by the CPC, and we do a lot with historic buildings in town. My understanding, and I may not have all the facts here, but this property was owned by the Spragues for a number of years. It ran as the Undermountain Farm. It was gifted with the payment of back taxes and debt for, to my understanding, $455,000 for a $2.5 million property. Subsequently, and I read the application for the money, and I thought it was a well-written application and gave a lot of detail. I don't want to not give money, but it seems to me, as I read it, they got $100,000 in donations. They're looking for another $89,000 from other sources, and then they're asking the town for half of the cost, $189,000. And it seems to me it's a little early in their track record to, well, it seems like it's all being done on the back of donations and the taxpayers, rather than skin in the game from the people who purchased, who were given the property by the Spragues. And that's essentially where I stand.
Susan Lyman, Schermerhorn Park. I actually had a question about Home Farm. What kind of entity is it? Is it an LLC? Is it a 5? What is it?
That's a good question.
Okay. I think it's a great question.
I think they are a 501c3 organization.
But does anyone know definitively?
Hold on for 1 second.
Yeah.
I'm the chairman of.
Can you just say your name?
Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just
Gary
say-
Nisley, live on Under Mountain Road,
A little closer to the mic.
and I'm delighted to be here. We are a 501c3, have been actually for 2 or 3 years. With the transaction with the Spragues, we got full control of the 105 acres. The reason why it's important to do this now, and it's really a critical time, is that building will fall down at some point. It's right now, we've had engineers looking at it, said it is the top 20% of post and beam barns in New England. That won't last long. This money will keep it from getting any worse. It will look a lot better. And it's really a very important part of our going forward. And by the way, we are new, but over the last year, we have raised more than $750,000 from our neighbors and friends. You can already see some of the improvements that have been made as you go by with the fencing, et cetera, and it will get better as the weather gets better and we'll be able to spend the money. So your money will be well spent. And a lot of people enjoy the looks of that. If those barns go down, it will be a totally different neighborhood. Thank you. Any other questions? I'm sorry.
Right behind you.
Laurie Pastana. I'm the executive director for Home Farm. I just want to clarify something because it said we had 81,000 and we were looking for 100,000. We have the matching amount, what we are asking for the town. We have that currently in escrow in our accounts to make our half, our 50% of that original saving so this barn doesn't fall down. So we do have 50% of the skin in the game.
Susan Lyman, Schermerhorn Park. What is the mission of Home Farm?
We actually have 3 missions. One of course, is the whole idea of historic preservation. That's so important in the town of Lenox. Those barns have been there since 1902, and I think a lot of people think that that's part of the heart of Lenox. So that's one. The second thing is we really believe in the value of animals and the experience with animals to the human health. We want to make, and we're already working with our schools, with educational institutions, with healthcare institutions, to bring people there. Come see our donkeys someday, okay? You will feel better. The third is to help to support and provide a place for the art community. We're thinking about providing free space for people who are musicians to come and kind of have open mic sessions. We are already working with artists to come there to have painting sessions. We're working with the Clark for certain things that we can do together. So those are the real principal ones. But I think the thing that most of us are concerned with is what those buildings look like and what that vista looks like. It's quite remarkable. Is that okay?
Hi, Neil Maximilian, Cliffwood Street. I sat in on all the meetings with the folks from Home Farm during their application process, and it's not actually my point, but I'm going to quote Olga Weiss when she and I were talking about this during the process, which is that, yes, this immediate project that's in front of us now is to repair buildings in disrepair, but were Home Farm not to survive and that land to be in the hands of a developer or something else, we don't just lose a historic resource of Lenox, we lose a view shed. When you travel under Mountain Farm and look out over that view towards Parsons Marsh, I think the view shed is also something that's historic and should be preserved, and we don't want to lose that. So, and Gary and I have had these conversations. It's difficult because their most pressing need is to keep the buildings from falling down. But I think in the greater scheme of Lenox, keeping that what it is as opposed to something that's ripe for development or McMansions or anything else is not in the interest of Lenox. Thank you.
Okay, so we are voting on the amendment to reduce the amount from 189,000 to 85,000. We're just voting on the amendment. So if you vote yes, it means you would like to reduce the amount. If you vote no, it means you want to keep it at the original amount. Does everyone understand? Okay, all in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Nay. Okay, it does not carry. So we're voting on the original article as written. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Nay. Motion carries.
Dave Roach, Housatonic Street. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $175,000 to be placed in the fire engine stabilization account, and further to provide for said appropriation, transfer the sum of $175,000 from free cash, so called as certified on July 1st, 2023.
Explanation?
So every year, we transfer money out of our free cash into a savings account to accumulate enough money to buy a new fire truck when we need one. So this is an ongoing thing. We have a balance there, so we'll be able to buy a fire truck when our new one, or when our older one wears out.
Okay, we are voting on Article 10. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? It carries. Article 11.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be placed in the ambulance stabilization account, and further to provide for said appropriation, transfer the sum of $50,000 from free cash, so called as certified on July 1st, 2023.
Explanation.
Similarly to the last explanation, we also accumulate funds for an ambulance. So this is another $50,000 going into that account.
Okay, we are voting on Article 11. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Unanimous. Article 12.
Max Scherf, Pine Knoll. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $250,000 for capital expenditures at the Lenox Library, and further to provide for said appropriation to transfer the sum of $250,000 in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 20, the unencumbered balance of $250,000 for design, engineering, repair, and construction at the Lenox Library, appropriated and borrowed under Article 12 of the June 29th, 2021 annual town meeting warrant, which balance is no longer needed to complete the project for which it was initially borrowed.
Explanation.
We continue to work with the Massachusetts Historical Commission on appropriate repairs to the library building. And that said, we see an opportunity to redeploy previously appropriated funds to do chimney, drainage, and other work at the building. This motion broadens the original purpose of the 2021 appropriation in order to accomplish this work with no additional tax impact.
Okay, we are voting on Article 12. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Unanimous. Article 13.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate, transfer from available funds, or otherwise provide funds to pay a prior year unemployment bill in the amount of $1,087.54, and further to provide for said appropriation, transfer the sum of $1,087.54 from free cash, so called, as certified on July 1st, 2023.
Explanation?
We have an outstanding invoice from unemployment dating back to the pandemic. Under Massachusetts general law, we must seek voter approval before paying such prior year invoices.
Okay, we are voting on Article 13. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Unanimous. No one doing Article 14? Okay, Article 14 is just to let everyone know to go out and vote on Monday for the office of moderator for 1 year, 2 selectmen for 3 years, 1 Board of Health member for 3 years, 1 assessor for 3 years, 3 school committee members for 3 years, 1 planning board member for 5 years, 1 housing authority member for 5 years, and 1 housing authority member for 4 years. That does not need to be voted on. Just want to make sure everyone knows to go out and vote on Monday. But I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All righty, everybody. Have a great night. Thanks for coming to town meeting.